distinguish him from someone else that became, and it becomes a surname.
I'm already asleep, but how do you? And then I've been, oh wait, identify the problem. No, sorry, that's a lovely last name. So,
yes, I did. My question is for all the writers. What is your greatest difficulty in writing, and what happens when you face it? What do you do?
Sometimes lunch is late. It's terrible.
I think one of the biggest challenges for us is any of those episodes where there are big, heavy moments, like when Sheldon told Amy, "I love you" for the first time. Or these kinds of things. So we care about these characters deeply, and it's very important to us that we get those kind of moments right. And I think that's when the stress levels probably raises up to the highest, when we're in the middle of those kind of scenes. Like, wow, Leonard's going to propose to Penny, and she's going to say yes. How are we going to do this, and how are we going to make that worthwhile for Leonard and Penny? So I think those are the biggest challenges for us.
I think there's also the challenge, I think, in writing comedy, which is you want characters to do bold, funny things, but you have to show that the bold, funny things are reasonable. You have to show that it's the reasonable next step in the progression, and sometimes that can be difficult. And if you don't do it right, then the characters just seem crazy. So,
I think the most difficult thing is emotional honesty, and not copying something you've done before, but giving the genuine, honest response to the moment. And there's no answer to that other than to face the difficulty, because if you knew what the answer was already, then you'd just be sort of, copying yourself. So it's in the same way as in life. Sometimes you're faced with situations where there's no rule, and you just kind of have to dig within and be honest. I think it's the same thing if you're writing something hard or something real.
I have a question for you guys then. When you're pitching jokes in the room, do you pitch them as the characters?
Are you asking for your accent?
Yeah.
Only for you.
Really?
No, really only for you.
I know Bill does. Bill has a good Indian accent. So you pitch the jokes in the accent?
of course, that's how you would know how they would sound.
Thank you, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Alright, so we've had some really fun guest stars this season. Any good stories or any favorites from the writers?
This was pretty fun. So Kevin Smith was on the show this past season, and he was supposed to be coming to the run-through, the rehearsal for that week. And that morning, my assistant said, Kevin wants to know if it's okay if he could bring his friend. And I said, who's his friend? And she says, I don't know, some guy named Jay. Ran down the hall saying, so I got Silent Bob is bringing Jay. You either knew what that meant and you lost your mind, or you didn't care. I know you were very...
I lost my mind. I lost my mind so hard that I tweeted about it and then got reprimanded by Warner Brothers.
When Billy Bob was on, and we were all, we were in the scene with him the first day of rehearsal, and we were like nervously doing the scene, and he's also nervously doing the scene, and then he stops in the middle of the scene, he looks at us and he says, I can't believe I'm here. Because his mother loves the show so much and got him hooked on the show that he was watching it, and he was doing a scene with me and Simon, and it's like, and he couldn't believe that it was real, and we couldn't believe that he was real. That was fun. That was a fun moment for us.
Billy Bob Thornton was one of the nicest people that we ever met, and he came and he worked very hard. And then after the show, we tape on Tuesday nights, there's pizza and beer backstage, and people sort of hang out, and people have brought friends, and they meet people and stuff like that. And Billy Bob stayed until, and he kind of closed the place. They're sort of, turning the lights on and playing closing time. And
he was posted up with a slice of cheese pizza and a Diet Coke.
We also had Nathan Fillion on.
Oh yeah. He's dreamy.
I had met Nathan Fillion previously at a Golden Globes party, and it was like pretty deep into the party, and I was feeling super brave. I
I was like, hey Nathan, Billy, Bob, that was a good show. And someday I'm gonna make $1 million and buy it and make both our dreams come true. For the first time. And it's great because it turns out celebrities, if you meet them, they don't remember. So
Or so they say. So we did the episode where we had to shoot a different ending to the Skywalker Ranch episode when Jim and Johnny end up at Skywalker Ranch. And we shot the ending, and then a week later we had to shoot a different ending. Do you want to talk about that? That was an interesting story.
You want to discuss the ending that didn't air?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading it from the pages that you guys gave me. If you don't see me next season, you'll know why.
The first ending that got shot, we found out at the end that Sheldon had stolen a lightsaber from Skywalker Ranch. And I was deeply troubled. The character couldn't commit what was essentially a felony, and he'd stolen something that has real value. So we came back a week later, and I don't even remember what the other ending was. But no, Sheldon was never going to become a felon. As long as I'm engaged in the show, I really, that character can't possibly commit a crime like that. So that was, I think, how the second ending came about.
What was the second ending now?
His sense of smell was still burned off from being tased, and Leonard, I think, was having to sniff magic markers to see if it was coming back.
So when Sheldon stole the print of Indiana Jones from the movie theater and ran down the street, not a crime?
We're happy to rewrite that one again.
I have to ask you a personal question that's on everyone's mind. How is it to kiss Jim Parsons on The Big Bang Theory?
It's great, you know. I think,
what details, Mayim, I think is what they want.
Yeah.
I think whenever
We're not looking for a philosophical answer.
Well, you're going to get one. Whenever Sheldon and Amy have intimacy, it's usually very specific, and it's very gently placed. And that scene that was in the reel of us opening the scene kissing. Even Jim and I felt so strange about that because our kisses have never been, kind of like make out, and even that, we both know how to kiss differently than our characters do. But, I remember Mark Sandrowski, our director, we tried it a lot of different ways, at one point I had my hand on his shoulder, and then Mark wanted like a little bit of movement, but not, very elegant movement. So I think for me and Jim, kind of everything we do that's intimate, including that is very crafted. We're never cavalier about that.
Tongue or no tongue? It's funny, for two characters who haven't kissed, he sure spanked you a lot.
Is that on your little piece of paper?
No, that was all in here. It's really fun being an actor on the show too, watching the other actors in scenes, because we're also such big fans of each other. And on a personal note, watching, Mayim and Jim are also wonderful, wonderful close friends off stage. But watching the scenes together is electric. So even in rehearsals, we'll just sit and watch their scenes, and it's really, truly, we become fans, to watch the scenes between them. It's really
But
fun.
Mayim, you and Jim have a very particular, I'm not making a joke, you have a very particular process that is interesting to watch. Could you talk about how you and Jim sort of work through and decide how to play a scene?
I mean, what's interesting is, Jim is a classically trained actor and I'm an untrained actor, but what's kind of neat is that we have a very similar way that we go about approaching scenes and approaching our work, and we work well together, which I think, is very important, especially for, as Steve indicated, things that are heavy and delicate, especially for a character like Sheldon's, and then, Amy as his kind of counterpart. Jim and I are very, very careful about how we do things. We talk a lot about it. Some actors don't talk a lot, and that's fine, and that's their process, but Jim and I do talk a lot. We wonder sometimes why the writers make decisions. We have conversations of, gosh, did you think we were ready for this? I didn't expect this. And even with I Love You, Jim and I were both we were very surprised that we were there, Even The Ring, we have those conversations, and to me, I think that adds to the complexity of the interactions as characters, because when I have to tell him I need time off, that had all of those conversations that Jim and I had behind it. Is this right? Is it not right? So I think it's part of what makes our communication as actors well, is that as people, we're interested in the same things about those characters.
And we want to do it right. We want to do the writing, give the writing the justice that it deserves.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll open up to some audience questions at this point.
Hi. So I'm Joan. And first I just want to thank you guys, because I was here a few years ago, and you just helped fulfill my make-a-wish. Just wanted to say thanks.
Oh.
Was first mentioned this season. Are there any other big, popular, new or old shows, fandoms that you want to, or even can tease is going to be in the show?
We did a fun little bit with Ghostbusters this year that I think Bill has a great story for how we were able to use Ghostbusters in the show.
Did you get paper too? Like,
I skipped over that question. Sorry. Good one.
Well, I have sort of the interesting perspective of not being full-time on the show. I will sometimes walk in and learn about a problem as I can. One of the things was that there was a piece about Ghostbusters using the clip featuring Bill Murray?
Yes.
And that they discovered at the last minute they didn't have permission to use, and the studio, I don't remember what studio that is, wasn't giving them permission. And I said, okay, I think I can help. It's going to involve being really rude to someone I know. But Chuck and I know Joel Murray, Bill Murray's brother, because he was on Dharma and Greg, a show that we worked on. And I hadn't talked to Joel in like 3 years. So I said, okay, I'll call up Joel and ask him if he'll call his brother. And so I called Joel and I said, this is one of those phone calls where I'm being a horrible person, and can you call your brother? And so he says, well, Bill Murray, my brother, is very hard to get a hold of. And I can leave a message for him, and sometimes he calls back right away, and sometimes it's a couple of months. And so he calls back and he says, Bill says, what's the name of the executive at the studio who won't give you permission? And I said, I'll get the name, and I got the name, and he said, and Bill wants to know what her phone number is. And I said, okay. And then about half an hour later, our line producer came in and said, we've been given permission to use anything we want. This poor studio executive, her phone rang, and it was Bill Murray on the other end. And apparently he said, why are you being so mean to the people at Big Bang Theory? And then on top of that, Joel called me back and said, Bill didn't think it was going to work.
We'll take another question.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a really big fan. My question is, in the past, nerds have been considered not cool, but now the culture's changed to where it is. Do you think that Big Bang Theory has had a role in that, or is it so popular because of the movement?
When we started, we never considered the characters nerds. We really didn't. We thought they were extraordinary. They were extraordinary characters, brilliant. We talked about them as being brilliant minds without the paranoid schizophrenia. And And the nerd thing kind of got attached to the show.
I think for me, because the starting place, which in the show has moved a great distance from it, but it started with a conversation that Chuck and I had about people that I knew and real people and not made up cartoons. And one of the things that I remember very much being around people like this and being a person like this is the celebration of difference and the acknowledgement of difference and the celebration of it. And we talked about that these characters celebrate who they are.
Yeah. I would also just like to say I've met some of those people, and don't worry, they're nerds.
Well, I mean,
yeah, we just didn't like the diminishing. We didn't like the word as a way of diminishing the characters. We wanted to celebrate their brilliance.
Well, and also, if I can just add, I get asked this kind of thing, a lot, and I feel like much as, there is this sort of notion of like geek chic and, that maybe our show has had some part in showing that, I think what our show demonstrates is that all kinds of people can have full lives and relationships and friends, and we don't need to pathologize everyone. That's not what we do. But I think what our show also shows is that it still can be lonely to be different. And some of my most favorite moments are when I see the writers have Sheldon have that experience. So, when people ask me like, oh, you guys make, nerds cool, it's still really hard to be different, and especially for young people, if you have interests that are not aligned with popular culture, it's still lonely, and I love when Sheldon expresses that he doesn't understand some interactions, and it's painful to him, and I think that's kind of, the beauty of what our writers do. They show all sides of that.
To at Comic-Con, and I was just wondering if there's been any challenges writing for or playing Raj, since he can be a feminine character.
I feel like we put you up a little bit. What was that question for?
I think it's for you.
I mean, are there any challenges writing for Raj because he's an effeminate character? Is he effeminate? I don't know. I think they love writing for him because he's an effeminate character. I don't know. Are there any challenges?
There is occasional writer's room mocking of people whose interests might extend to areas that cross gender lines. And sometimes gets written.
It always hurts my feelings. And it always hurts my feelings.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
People can like girls and musicals.
Next question. I'm glad to be here. We all know how Sheldon feels about Superman, the Man of Steel. Well, we also have to know that since the late 30s, we've been introduced to many aliens from other planets, extraterrestrials, if you will. We also have to know that Thor is a god. So how would Sheldon respond to the blasphemous, or perhaps the double blasphemous statement that a battle between Superman and Thor would be like E.T. versus Jesus?
Why would E.T. and Jesus fight? Wouldn't they be on the same page?
Superman is vulnerable to magic. Wouldn't godly powers be technically under magic?